Hi there, and welcome to the Multiply You podcast, where we showcase top experts in their space and reveal all the secrets you need to know to multiply you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Austin Clark here with the Multiply You podcast, where I interview top leaders in their space. Happy Friday. I hope everyone's just creating a great day. Today is no exception, and today's guest is certainly no exception. Jared Green, founder of PestRoutes. We'll introduce him here in a moment. Very, very excited to be able to have him on, to be able to share some of his path, some of his journey, and how he's just really, he wouldn't say this because he's humble, but just absolutely disrupting the software space, the home service type space, and the value that he and his firm are providing. As always, this podcast, it's brought to you by Romney Pest Control. One of our main focuses is growth. It's the right kind of growth. It's the responsible kind of growth. We do that the same way that all businesses do. We do it through pay-per-click campaigns. We do it through search engine optimization. We do it through employing fantastic software and direct mail pieces. You name it, right? One of the ways that we're specifically drilling in is growth through acquisition. And so, if you know anybody specifically in the Arizona market that has 3, 4, 5 or more trucks on the road, that's a respectable brand, get them in contact with us. Get them in contact with me. We haven't talked about this, Jared, but we've been having some success the last couple of years doing that. And we did a deal not too long ago with a gentleman named Randy that I think just totally epitomizes the industry. And you'd probably have a really good pulse on this, but most of the industry, it's not these 50, 60, 70, $100 million companies. Most of it is 2, 3, 4, 5-person operators that have worked for 20, 30, sometimes 40 years to be able to build this customer base and these routes. And so we were able to, Randy at the time, he wasn't really looking to get out. And we were able to meet one another and did a deal. And he was so scared, first of all, of total retirement. And so he's semi-retired now, but he's happy with how that went. We're happy with how that went. And he's living a more relaxed life, golfing a little bit more and traveling a little bit more. But if you know anyone that's listening, have them reach out. My direct email is aclark@moxypestcontrol.com. They can call or text me on my cell too. That's 480-254-9730. Now, the good stuff. Today, we have got Jared Green on. Jared Green is the founder of PestRoutes. We were talking just before this, and I'm so glad and grateful and thankful that he's on. He's been such an incredible partner, I guess, if you will, to not just me, but the entire partnership group at Moxie. And earlier I said, it occurred to me, what if Jared and PestRoutes didn't exist? And I almost threw up a little bit in my mouth. That is not a world I want to imagine, especially with what I do. Jared Green is the founder of PestRoutes.com, an end-to-end office management software for field service companies. He graduated from Brigham Young University with an accounting and computer science degree. Jared currently lives in McKinney, Texas, with his wife, 2 boys, and his baby daughter, who has more sass than the entire family combined. I've got 2 daughters. I can empathize with you. Currently, he spends his time building mobile apps, angel investing, learning how to swing a golf club, and working with other entrepreneurs to help build their dreams. Jared, thank you so much for being on. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you, Austin. I really appreciate the opportunity. And just to echo some of the things that you said, I've just really appreciated our relationship and being able to work with you guys. And I've loved working with Moxie over the years. You guys have just such a great organization. So happy to be here and excited to talk a little bit more.
Very good. Thank you. So, first and foremost, just your start. And I guess for me, this is something as we've kind of recently reconnected and re-engaged. There is, well, I don't think, but I can imagine that what PestRoutes is today is what you had penciled out on a napkin or an Excel sheet 15 or plus years ago, right? And so, I mean, you've taken this thing from start to finish. It's not finished. It's continuing to evolve. But how was PestRoutes today? How was it born? What were your initial? I mean, just tell us some of that story.
Yeah, so it's funny. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to own a business. I've always been passionate about computer science. I've always been passionate about sales. But it's funny because, all growing up, I had this idea that I wanted to do something. I want to start my own business. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to maybe do something with computers. But, despite that, I still remember, my senior year of college, standing outside in the freezing cold, talking to my boss at the time and really good friend now, Greg Romney, who I worked for, Romney Pest Control down in Dallas. And I remember just this panic setting in of like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, what do I do with my life? And I think, what was a little bit tricky was that, I had this accounting degree that I was finishing up. And I found out really quickly that I didn't really want to have an accounting career. I interviewed with a lot of people and it just wasn't like, it just did not feel like what I wanted to do. And I started having this panic of like, what am I going to do with my life? And all my roommates knew exactly what they're doing. They had job offers. They knew where they were moving to, they had it all figured out. And I remember just being panicked about what I'm going to do. And, one of the things that was really, and it's still, amazing to me that, I always wonder, like, what do people actually do for a living? Like, what are they actually doing all day, every day? And especially back then, I think you kind of get a couple of different answers when you ask people, like, what do you do for a living? Usually you get one of three answers, I think. One of them is, I'm a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher, which is really defined, really understandable. Or you get something super corporate, like, I'm the, director of business development at XYZ Corporation. Or you get something super niche and specific, for, small business owners, something like, I own a company that builds the hinges, between garage doors and I market them specifically to the Pacific Northwest region, and it's like, and I was just blown away. I was like, well, what am I going to do? I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know what exactly that looks like. So I think, I was sitting out there in the cold and I had, been selling pest control the last 5 summers to pay for school. And I'd done really well with that, but I knew it's something you can't do forever. I was graduating with this degree that I really didn't want to pursue. And in the meantime, I was also working on this little software thing to help our sales team be more, efficient. But I was just sitting there thinking, like, what am I going to do for a living? What am I going to do? But I think there was a couple things that, happened at that point. Number one, I realized that there's just so many problems and so many needs in the world. There's so many things that people need solutions for. And it's not really that complicated, There's just a lot of things that people struggle with every single day, especially business owners, or even individuals that they struggle with every day. There's just a million things that, can be done to help improve businesses or people or their lives. And really, all you got to do is pick one of those things and just do it really, really well. And you get rewarded for doing that, And so so you look at some of those guys that are building the hinges between garage doors and you think, oh my gosh, like that's so specific, it's so niche, but it's a legitimate problem that exists in this world. And there's somebody that does that and solves that problem really, really well. And guess what? They get paid, a tremendous amount of money, to do it. So I was building this software, for my sales team. And I thought, before I go get a corporate job that I know I'm going to hate, like, let me see if I can actually build this into something. Let me see if I can actually do something with this. And so what I had built was this software called TextRoutes. And essentially all it was the ability to eliminate, some of the scheduling, for door-to-door sales guys. So when I was selling pest control, I had a team of, 40 guys. And my boss, Greg Romney, one of the things he's really good at is being really efficient with his money and being very efficient with how he spends his money. He didn't want to hire a specific secretary for the summer to schedule appointments for the sales guys. So he said, Jared, I'm paying you to be the team leader of these 40 guys. You're responsible for managing the routes and managing the schedules. It's part of what I'm paying you to do. And so, I was having these 40 guys call me like every 2 minutes, saying, hey, can we schedule a time between, 12 and 4? Do you have an 8 to 12 on this day? Whatever it was. And, for the first week, it was fine. And then, I started realizing, oh my gosh, like I can't even go out and sell myself. I can't even spend time managing the team. All I'm doing is like basically scheduling appointments for these sales reps. And I thought, it's so mundane. It's so simple. Like, I feel like even a monkey could do it. And then I thought, well, if a monkey could do it, well, maybe a software could do it as well. And so I built this software basically that, a sales guy could text in to my computer, and my computer would figure out if a spot was available, and then it would text back if it was available. From there, I thought, well, it's really cool now that I can manage the scheduling process, but now I also know every time someone makes a sale. So wouldn't it also be cool if this software could text out to everybody saying, how many everyone sold at every, given point of the day. And, it was interesting because, and the thing kind of evolved where, pretty soon it was managing, digital contracts. Pretty soon it was managing, it's printing out for the technicians. So we didn't have to take paperwork into the office every day. So I built this cool little, software thing. And in my mind, I thought, it'd be great if I, could, sell this to, 30 or 40 companies and then go get my real job and just have a little bit of envelope money on the side, But I built this software. I sold it to 30 or 40 companies. I was looking at a bunch of job offers for, some of these corporate, jobs. And, I thought what would be really cool is if I could take this software that I've built and if I could plug it into somebody's existing office management platform, and it would get rid of one layer of, data entry. So I went and talked to 30 or 40 of these companies that I'd sold this to and said, hey, I want to integrate this into your office management software. Which one do you like? Which one, or what do you use? And, is that what you're going to continue to use? And, how do I get in the process of integrating? And as I talked to these 30 or 40 companies that were using my TextRoutes software, every single one of them said the exact same thing. They said, actually, we hate our software. We wish there was something better out there. While you're talking to other people, find out if there's something we should all switch to, because we'll switch in a second if there's something better out there. We actually don't really like our software at all. I thought to myself, wow, that's so crazy that, all these people hate their software. Like, in my mind, it doesn't really seem that complicated, to build something that, people actually might enjoy. And I thought to myself, oh, really, it wouldn't be that much different than taking what I already have and kind of expanding on it and building out a few more features. And, maybe this would actually work to run people's businesses. So I talked to these 30, 40 companies and I said, hey, if I built something, what would it look like to you? Like if there was a software that you really liked, an office management platform that you really liked, what would it look like? And they started explaining some of the features they were looking for and some of the gripes they had and some of the things that they cared about.
Hey, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that.
Exactly. And so, I just kind of sat with them and, I spent, an entire year basically in one of the Moxie offices, for example, just kind of sitting next to, the people in the office using the software and just kind of watch what they were doing and, try to understand what their pain points were and, what they're struggling with. And, I thought it would take 6 months to build this. And, 6 years later, we had a great, fully functioning, ready to go software that we went and launched and built and, kind of grew from there. So that's kind of how I got my start. And I think that's what's interesting about, life is that, you don't really usually have all the information you need to go make a decision. Usually you're kind of in the same spot that I was, where you have a general idea of what you want to do and you have a general goal to try to make things, better for somebody. But you don't really know what that exactly looks like. And so until you actually kind of step out and, put your neck out on the line and just kind of go, start trying to do it, I think that, I think that's kind of how life goes, is that you just have to, take the first step and, the step after that and the step after that. And sometimes you look back and say, wow, it all worked out. But you don't usually see that, looking forward, you usually see it looking backwards. So.
And so, Jared, what year or what summer was it that you were managing these 40 sales reps? You were also, you had also been hired, maybe you knew it, maybe you didn't, but as the office person to schedule all of that, what year, what year was that?
So I started managing, I think it was 2009. So from 2009 to 2000, so I sold from 2006 to 2009, and from 2009 to 2011, I managed the team that was building TextRoutes.
And
So
so
then in 2000,
2009 to 2011 is kind of what is where TextRoutes started and kind of inspired you to, hey, they don't need to be calling me. I can figure this out. So did you test that out and work some of the kinks out for that 2-3 years, or and then did you take it to market, if you will, after that with the 30 or 40 other pest companies?
yeah. So the first summer, it was just, it was really just for me. It was really just for me and my team. And, I spent, that whole summer kind of building this, software, and then, the off season of the next year. And then it was the next year I thought, I wonder if anybody, this would be beneficial to anybody else. And so I think initially I signed up 3 or 4 other companies, just people I knew or close friends that also had pest control companies. And they tried it out and they loved it. They thought it was great. And then I thought, well, I wonder if I could really go out and sell this. And, so I still remember calling up Dave Royce, for example, with Aptiv, and just being, so scared, because he was the big, I guess at the time it was Eco First or whatever. And I remember just feeling like such a schmuck, with my little teeny program walking in, and, talking on the phone and saying, hey, do you want to give this a try? Or do you think this might work for your office? But then, just slowly but surely, after, just, knocking on doors, calling phone numbers, that, somehow I ended up with 30 or 40 companies that were using it after, 3 years or so. And so, but yeah, it definitely took a while of, trial and error. And, it took a period of using it myself to kind of get it right before it was, worth showing to somebody else.
And so you fast forward that to today. I mean, today, PestRoutes is fully integrated, fully stacked. I mean, end to end. I mean, everything. It does everything. People, and the thing that's also interesting, I found this out about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. This is not limited to pest at all. I've got friends here in Phoenix that have other home service type companies, and I'm sure that you've got clients, or PestRoutes.com has got clients all throughout the nation that run their landscape companies, pool companies. I mean, you name it, right? So.
Yeah, so it's it's really similar between the industries. Field service is kind of what we call ourselves. Initially was just pest control, but field service in general is kind of what we are. Is where we're sitting. And a pest control company is fundamentally really identical to a lawn care company, or to a pool cleaning company, or to a house cleaning company, or house cleaning service. Anytime that you're sending a person on a regular recurring basis to someone's some form of service, that's field services. And I think that there's, so much that's, in common, between those, individual niches or companies in the field service industry. So that's really what PestRoutes has turned into, is, a full-fledged field service office management platform. There are a lot of really unique things between, pest control companies versus a lawn care company, but there's, also a ton that's the same. And so that's actually our goal over the next, few years, is to expand that further and further, and to take what we've done in the pest control industry and expand that to other industries as well.
And so, Jared, from your perspective, I want to kind of move on to the next question here. Incredible story. Thank you. I think that I knew most of that, but certainly learned a few things too. But you and your team are just uniquely qualified, I think, to be able to say, or have at least a really strong opinion about how not just PestRoutes, but software in general could be used. And so I wonder, with your experience, with your team's experience, what are either some of the most common mistakes you see entrepreneurs, business owners, it can be in home service or just, business in general. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see, and how can these companies or owners or office people or whatever use the software to its full advantage so that they can maximize the benefit of that software?
Yeah, so I think one of the things I've seen is that software is really interesting because it's really, really good at some things and it's really, really bad at other things. And I think that you have to kind of understand the place that software has in your business, and you have to be able to utilize it 100% and or as much as you can in that in that capacity. But then you can't expect software to solve some of the other problems in your business. And so I think one of the things that I see often is that software is I see this over and over again, and it happens with small companies, and it definitely happens with enterprise and super large companies. Is that software is built the same way a lot of businesses are built, in that it's built to handle 90% of people 90% of the time. And sometimes I think we have a fascination with getting that last 10%, and getting that last 10% of edge cases and use cases. But sometimes I think that we spend more time on the 10% than we could growing the 90%. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate things and, make things, harder than they need to be. So for example, specifically related to software, one of our first clients, or one of our early clients, I still remember he had this commission report where he paid his sales reps. And I think a lot of people understand how, painful commissions can be, how complicated it can be to get it right, how complicated it can be to manage, how complicated it can be to audit. And so, his approach was, let's handle every single use case and every single edge case of what could possibly happen with an account that we've sold during the summer. And let's pay it out, as specifically as we can. And, he sent over the spec sheet, and I'm not joking, it was 2 pages long. And it had it was mind boggling, there was qualified versus unqualified. And if somebody paid, 3 months in a row, but skipped 2 services, but then had an auto pay on file, but then the sales rep, sold a certain amount of accounts and stuff it was unbelievably complicated. And so, we spent hours on this report. I think I billed them for 5 hours or something like that. And I think we probably spent at least, 200 hours, on this report.
Oh my gosh.
And, and we kept running into more edge cases and more scenarios and more situations and stuff. And ultimately, for a while, it was let's double down and just, build more software and build more features and functionality to handle these different edge cases. And, but on the flip side, he was also finding that to explain this, pay scale to his sales reps, it was exhausting, to actually explain how it works.
He needed to hire an engineer on staff to be able to explain it, right?
Exactly. And the sales reps didn't really ever fully understand it. And, when they had complaints, when they had issues, it was almost impossible to audit because it was you had to go through so many different, checks. And ultimately what he ended up doing was just simplifying his commission schedule. And it handled, in this case, probably 95 or 98% of the cases. And there was 5% of the time that, things were a little funky or whatever. But the reps didn't actually really care. They just wanted to have some, certainty about what they were going to get paid and some, and they want to have a clear understanding of how they were going to get paid. And so I think sometimes, software, we have a tendency to want to overcomplicate things and maybe try to get 100% of the edge cases. And I think, taking a step back from software and just looking at business in general, I think the only way to really scale and to grow is to try to hit that 90% of people, 90% of the time. And that just frees you up to handle edge cases if you need to, or just get them out of your life. And, one of my really good friends, Greg Romney, who I worked for, he's really good at that. And, in his business, he wants repeatable customers. He wants repeatable process. He doesn't want edge cases. He doesn't want people that have to be seen on a specific day by a specific person at a specific time, with a specific service. He wants 90% of people, 90% of the time. And, sometimes I think we chase after that 10% and it just adds an inordinate amount of stress to our lives and makes it hard to actually run and scale our business. And so in software, I think that's critical to understand, is that you're never going to get 100% of functionality. And so sometimes you have to change your processes, and sometimes you have to simplify your processes to match the software. And software is always improving. At PestRoutes, for example, I know this is true of every software company, but at PestRoutes, for example, we have 25 developers that all day, every day are trying to bridge that gap, that last 10%, and handle all the edge cases and handle all the situations. But it's a never-ending process. We could have 1,000 developers and never, really close that gap completely. So that's one thing I see. And the other thing I see is just not utilizing your software 100%, or not using the features that are available there. Sometimes you're afraid that, it's not going to work, for every case. And other times you're worried that it's not going to fit your process exactly. But I think what software can do really well is automate, bulk defined processes, or, things that, so for example, at PestRoutes, we do a thing called, intelligent routing, for example. And with intelligent routing as a pest control owner, you can, you spend a large portion of your time and energy making sure that you see everybody you need to see when you need to see them. And usually you have a person that's in charge of doing that sometimes spends 4 or 5 days, trying to figure out what the best way to go see all these people is. In our software, you can click a button and within, 5 minutes, it'll spit out your entire month's worth of routes that are, optimized by driving directions. And it can save you hundreds of hours a month between your office manager and also your technicians. But some people are afraid of it.
And there's thousands of scheduling managers and scheduling leads across the country that thank you so much for that. Yeah.
But you can be afraid of it sometimes. You can be afraid, well, you can find cases where the software didn't do the exact right job. And there's always going to be those cases where, might have added a stop here or stop there that maybe wasn't perfect. But overall, 90% of the time for 90% of the people, it's gonna make a huge improvement, and it's gonna eliminate hundreds of hours, from your life, and also the stress of it. And so that's the thing. I think it's the trade-off of software is that you got to know what the software is going to be able to do well, and you have to understand what it's not going to do well, and take advantage of what it does, and work around the stuff that it doesn't. So.
Well, and you've talked, initially about like 90-10, but I think it's just as easy to be able to say like the 80-20 rule. And the 80-20 rule also exists in reverse, where you can spend 20% or, 80% of your time on something that will produce 20% of the results. And that's the opposite of the 80-20 rule, right? And so, and then, you've got ideal customers. And I think that, what that sparked in me, in you saying that is, well, maybe that 10% of customers, maybe they're not my ideal customer, or maybe they're, what I mean? And I think that's really great.
And that's goes so scary for a business owner, especially in the beginning, is the idea of saying no to a customer is terrifying. Or the idea of saying, I'm not the right fit for you is terrifying, because in the beginning, you're desperate for as many customers as you can get, and you want to make them as happy as possible. So the idea of, telling people, hey, maybe we're not the right fit for you, or maybe, this isn't the right place for you, is terrifying. But until you go down the path a little bit and you find out, like you said, that 90% of your headache and 90% of your stress and 90% of your time is built around these 10% of customers that you're just not a great fit for, you start cutting that, out and saying, hey, look, I want to know exactly who I'm best for, and I want to serve them as best as possible, and I want to focus on what I do really well. And eliminate, kind of the part that is just not working really well. And I think that your life gets instantly better. Your stress goes down, your hours go down, and your ability to move forward with what you do well is significantly better. So I think that's a tough thing, I think, in general for business owners.
It's so tough. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because, as companies grow and scale, which is what they should be doing, sometimes you get clients on there that maybe should have never been on there in the first place, or that have become an extremely needy, these special preferences, right? And at some point, it just doesn't make sense. But when you're the owner of a company and you have 2 customers, and you're saying, man, I got to fire this guy, it's like, well, that's 50% of my customer base. And so it's really, really scary. But and those are difficult things to do, but they've got to be done because of all of the things that you said. Before this, I kind of laid out to you my primary purpose of this thing, and that is just that if there's something that you could say, and you've already said so many things, or past guests or future guests could say, that would save one business owner, manager, employee, whoever, one gray hair or one sleepless night or 1 hour, then this would be worth it for me. And I think that that's a great nugget that you've shared, just as far as, well, maybe you should be constantly reevaluating your customer base, and that applies with employees too, and your processes, and where are we hung up and where are we stuck? What Jared, what would you say your proudest moment is at PestRoutes? Is there something that you're just super proud of? Was it landing that first deal or scaling it to the size that you've got it to? What's something that you're really proud about?
Honestly, it's funny because I just feel like, for so long, and I think this is probably true of most business owners, is you kind of get your head down, you're in the trenches. Every day feels like a marathon. It feels like you're just, doing whatever you can to survive. And it feels like there's, only very few kind of vista moments where you kind of stick your head up and, kind of look down a little bit at what you've, been working on and what you've been building and kind of see the progress. And it's so slow in the moment, but when you look back and you kind of, see what, things have happened, I think that you see a lot of things, and that was a really meaningful experience for me. It's been a really meaningful experience for me, to kind of see some of the stuff that we've built and some of the problems we've solved and some of the things that we thought were, impossible, 5 years ago that, are no big deal nowadays, and, I think one thing, for example, that along those lines is, every single year, I spent a lot of time at the beginning of each year to trying to reevaluate what I was going to do the next year. I have a business partner, Rubens Basso. He's just awesome. He's one of the best people I know in this world.
We love Rubens. He's the best in the world. I feel like I might be, one of those 10 percenters for him. I feel like I need to send him a fruit basket. So I'll probably do that today.
He's awesome. Yeah. And, me and him would sit down at the beginning of every year and just say, well, what are we going to do this next year? And, we kind of had, in our minds, and I think this is important, I think for a lot of business owners is you kind of have to have a plan. You have to, it doesn't have to be super detailed, but it has to be, you have to know where you're going. Because I think when you own a business, you spend so much time just trying to keep the thing moving and keep it alive that, if you're not hyper, aware or hyper focused on where you want to be, it's so easy to get caught in a rut and just, be stagnant and just to kind of, coast with what you're doing, because just running the business, and until you've owned a business, I don't think you really fully understand what it's like. But just to keep the thing alive and just to keep the thing from dying on a regular basis takes so much effort. And so, we would try every single year to sit down and say, all right, what are our targets for this year? Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? And I still remember, at the beginning of every year, we would set some of these targets and I would have this pit in my stomach and I'd say, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? There's no way we can do this, in the beginning, for example, we either doubled or tripled every year, from 2012 to 2018. So, in the beginning, that was really easy because, we'd go from 30 customers to 60 customers. But in years that we tripled, it was almost like, it killed us the next year because it was like, if we want to double again, it actually hurt us. We grew so much last year because we got to go do that and, ×2 next year. And, so I would sit down and I'd look at the numbers and I'd say, wow, in order for us to double, for example, to go from 500 clients to 1,000 clients, that means we've got to put on, 10 new clients a week, which is 2 new clients a day have to go live. And in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way that we can do that. That's impossible.
We need to hire 50 people a month ago.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We'd be like, oh my, if I want to be able to do that, then I would have to hire, this many people in implementation. I have to hire this many people in support. I have to have this many sales guys. I'm going to have this many extra, developers to kind of keep up with the load. But then all of a sudden, I was like, okay.
you need to go rob these 3 banks right now,
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we got to pay for it, So
yeah, there's that.
But yeah, and that was scary. It was a kick in the crotch, and it was panic inducing a lot of times. But then it was funny because I'd say, oh, if we're going to do that, then we have to do this. But then all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, then I got my marching orders. Now I know what I actually have to do. And no matter how hard it was, when you had a vision of what you wanted to do and you had a vision of what it had to, what had to happen to make it work. I think that I think that then it's, it gives you a little more clarity through your day to day, for an hour a day, you can break away from the mundane and say, what have I done today to get us toward this goal, and have I hit this benchmark that we have to do if we want to hit our target? And so I was always really proud to look back and see we hit every target we ever set. And in fact, we blew past most of them. And it was really kind of cool to see that, because at the time it seemed impossible, and looking back, it seemed so easy. But I was always really proud of our team, and and their ability to kind of step up and to do what needed to be done to get the job done. So, but I think that's important for business owners as well, is that you got to set targets that make you uncomfortable. You got to spend time at the beginning of every year, every period, finding out or deciding where you want to be at the end of the year. And you have to have certain things that are non-negotiable. We would do this, all the time at PestRoutes, from a software perspective and also a business perspective. From a software perspective, it's so easy to get caught up in the never-ending list of features or requests or things that people are asking for. And sometimes the things people are asking for from a feature perspective are so specific to them and so specific to their issues that have zero value to everybody else. And sometimes it's things that are, that actually would be really nice and great to have, but I don't know if we can do it right now, And so, we had to set really specific targets. And this is what we started doing, later on was, we would set, these are the things that have to happen this year. And if we do nothing else, these are the things that we're going to deliver, and these are the things that are going to get done. And if everything else falls apart, but we get these things right, then, we're going to consider it a success. And I think you kind of have to do that in business, is you kind of have to set some targets ahead of time of these are the things that this year are going to get done no matter what, and kind of let some of the other stuff, go, and save that, save some of the other things for, next year or the year after that. Because otherwise you kind of get stuck and you get overwhelmed, and you get, you kind of, get shut down from the feature overload. So,
well, and it takes tremendous discipline and tremendous focus to be able to say no and no to your customers. And I'm not just talking about the 10%, but like you said, sometimes people would suggest things, or, hey, Jared, what about this? And you're like, man, that's a game changer. But my priorities for the year are set. We've got to get these things done. These are the non-negotiables. Scott Steckel, he's the president right now of the MPMA. He was on 2 days ago, and he said something similar that you just said. He said, earlier on, in his younger days, he would have these 20 priorities, right, that he would set at the beginning of the year. December would come, and he would have accomplished none of them, or very few of them, because he got stuck in the thick of thin things. And, more recently, probably the last decade or two, he's just said, hey, we've pared that way down. We focus on 3 to 5. And guess what? 3 to 5 get done every year. And so it's just that focus, right? What is it you're looking to be able to accomplish? And then non-negotiable, you are working like a dog, weekends, early mornings, late night, and you're just making it happen. You're making it happen. No, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think to go along with that, Rubens, he always had a saying, which like I've come to love, and that's that, sometimes it feels bad to say no to something, but you have to understand that if you say yes to something, it means that you're saying no to 100 other things.
Yes.
So
yes.
Every time you say yes, you're actually saying no to 100 other things that you now don't have time or focus or energy, to go do. And so when you think about it that way a little bit, it kind of helps you prioritize and understand that, you have a finite amount of time, a finite amount of energy, and a finite amount of resources. And, you can't do it all. You got to pick the things that are the most important, and you have to make sure that you deliver on it.
I love it. No, thank you. So what are some of the things, Jared, that you see either in the software space or on the horizon? Are there changes coming that not that you're aware of, but how do you see software evolving in the next couple of years, right? What is that going towards a certain thing or platform or program, or where do you see the software space going?
We're kind of getting towards the tail end of a cycle right now. And that's that, the idea of, paperless automated systems, that was it seems crazy to say, but that was a novel idea in 2012 when we started. Like the idea of being paperless, I can't tell you how many people I had to convince that paper was bad for their business. And,
and the environment. Do you know how many trees you're killing every day? And we were there. We were just chopping forests down that we just didn't know a better way until you came along.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of, I think we're kind of at the point where most businesses in pest control space, and there's other industries where it's not quite this way yet, but most businesses in the pest control space, I think, have kind of caught that vision, and I think that we're kind of nearing, getting to a more mature section of that cycle of everyone switching away from paper and switching away from kind of notebooks and pens on, some of the stuff, or keeping everything up here to actually having everything in a software system and having a paperless system and automating some tasks. And, I think one of the things that we're seeing more and more is just services kind of coming together and software services kind of coming together, and pulling everything into, centralized, spaces. So, for example, having your phone system, tied into your office management software, having your website and your marketing, tied into your, CRM database, your customer database. And I think that's something we're going to see more and more of is, integrated services that talk to each other, that work together, that leverage each other. And also, I think, just automating, more tasks and more functionality. I think we're starting to realize that there's certain interactions that customers really care about, and there's certain interactions that nobody really wants. And so, for example, in terms of paying your bill, like most customers don't want to talk to somebody to pay their bill. Like they don't want to think about it. They want to be able to they don't even want to have to put a credit card in anymore. They want to take their phone and tap it somewhere and have it, Apple Pay, and, forget about it, But when they call in for an issue or a problem, like they want to have a person on the other line. They want to have a positive interaction. They want to, they don't want to be on hold forever. They don't want to go through a phone tree. They don't want to, be frustrated. The person they're talking to doesn't know the answer. And so I think that's the next thing we'll see is, software automating more and more of the stuff, the interactions that people don't value, but, re-leveraging, what that frees up to, improve the interactions people do care about.
So that is super exciting. And I don't know if, that's in the horizon for PestRoutes. If it is, I'm very excited about it. But, PestRoutes has been so meaningful for us and me to run our business, but we do have 5,000 other software. So for example, we use Zenefits, which I really, really like, to do all of our payroll, right? And onboarding and the docs that you used to fill out when you got a new job that was like buying a house. And it's like, oh, so that's all automated now. And you can document things and, ask and request different things from employees. If employees want to change their address, there's no longer a form that they fill out. And, it's just, if they want to change it, they change it. If they want to change their tax withholding, they change it. They don't have to talk to anybody at, the firm or Moxie or wherever else. You bring up phone systems and that gets to be just an incredibly exciting thing to be able to house all of that in one go-to kind of place.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's where things are going. I think that, we've built out all these systems, in the world that are doing all these great, wonderful, amazing things, these game-changing, revolutionary things. And I think, that, kind of the next phase is linking all those together and, bringing them together in one place and be able to pull, data that helps you make good decisions between, with a, kind of a look at all those, systems and all that data.
And so you see, or you think that, maybe the next decade things we're kind of going, 2010s to now, more digital, more automated, and we'll just see more of that. But I mean, pulling all pieces of software and plugins to one place, one space.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the future of software in general, but also, the other thing I see is, with COVID and stuff, we've seen such a transformation in how we work and how we, interact with each other. And I think that that's going to be something that never goes back to normal per se. I think that we've learned that there's certain things we don't have to be together to do. There's certain things we do have to be together to do. And I think we've seen those things as well, that things, there are things that fall apart when you're not in a room with somebody, like, actually having a conversation, actually shaking hands with them. And, I think there's things that are critical for that. But there's also things that, we don't really need to be in an office, space to do, or we don't really need to be together to do. And I think that's the other thing I think software will really enable going forward is helping us optimize, how we spend our time together versus how we just go get stuff done without having to, go into an office or, spend time at a desk. So.
Well, and I think that you're right with the whole COVID thing. I think, however fast that transformation was happening, it was just expedited like crazy because of COVID. And, the other thing as it relates to pest home services, I think there's two really big things at play. One, there's people like you that are leading the charge and disrupting those types of industries with the work that you've done. But you also consider like who's coming into the marketplace, and I'm not talking like software marketplace. I'm talking about who are home services customers. Well, now, so I'm a millennial by like 1 month, and I'm embarrassed to have that title. I think you might have. I think you might have escaped that by a year or two. I think you've got a couple on me.
I'm in the same boat. I snuck in. I think I'm 6 months a millennial officially.
Oh,
so.
Good. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're both embarrassed about that, right? But so think about that. So and it's not just millennials anymore, but right, how they're not putting up with paper. They're not putting up with, like you said, I mean, everyone has credit cards, but it's more tap it with the phone or tap it with my watch, like to pay for it. And so and they're starting to be in careers and they're starting to make money and purchase homes and have disposable income. And they will not put up with a 3x5 card or a paper invoice. Or if you want anything done, you have to call or go in. Like, no way, Jose. They want a very easy, seamless process. I mean, if they're in the movie or if they're at dinner or if they're doing whatever, and they want to schedule an appointment or reschedule an appointment or update a credit card, they want to do that whenever, however they want at their convenience, right? So it'll be an interesting decade. It'll be an interesting decade. As we kind of round this out, Jared, what you definitely have formal, right? I mean, college education, but what does someone like you do now for education? I mean, to sharpen the saw, are you part of these YPO groups or Vistage groups? Do you have coaches or mentors? How is it that you stay relevant and up to date and educated about what you're doing?
Yeah. So, I read books. I don't read a ton of books, to be honest with you. I probably should read more. It's actually one of the things that it's on my to-do list is to read more books.
Yeah.
I've read a few that are excellent, that are really good. Begin with the Why is one of my favorite ones. That was really, mind altering for me, and, helped me kind of understand a little bit more about,
who authored that?
What I was doing.
Do you recall?
I'm
putting you on the spot.
Sinek, Simon Sinek, maybe. Is that right?
Gosh, he's written everything that's good,
Begin with the Why or Start with the Why. Yes, Simon Sinek, Start with the Why.
Yeah, okay. He's incredible.
That's a really good one. It just talks about being really intentional about, why am I doing this? Before I go and build out this, spend all this time building whatever I'm building or doing whatever I'm doing, why am I doing that? And why are my customers buying it? And that's a question I think we don't ask enough is, why do my customers care? Why do my customers want this? I think you can get rid of, you can eliminate so much of the stuff that you're spending your time on doing, that your customers don't really care about, and hyper focus on the stuff that you do. If you really understand what they care about, what they want, why they want it, that type of thing. But also,
it sounds like, and I know that you just recently read that book and it's been impactful for you, but whether you know it or not, that's what you did 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? When you were just listening. Well, why do they hate their software company that they currently have? Well, why is that a sticking point? And so, I don't know that you needed to read the book to get it. You were doing that years ago.
Oh, it's so funny though. Like, you just forget all the time, and you just like so many times you get recentered and you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I just wasted the last 6 months of my life, doing something that really didn't help anybody, like, And so it's a constant, I think, battle to, to stay focused and to, but the other thing I think is really helpful is just having mentors. And that's something that I've done a lot. In the beginning, I literally would just go on LinkedIn and find people that had similar, businesses or did similar things as me, and just reach out and say, hey, like, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. Would you be willing to talk? And there's a couple of people that I met that way that I still have contact with today, and still talk with. And there's times when I ran into like an issue or a struggle, or I'm like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to be handling this. And it was so amazing to be able to call somebody who'd been through that and to just kind of hear what they had to say about it, because they're like, for me, for example, there's pain points that I just thought were insurmountable, that I thought, oh my gosh, like, this is going to kill my business and I have no idea how to solve it. And then you talk to somebody and they say, oh my gosh, I went through that same thing. Here's what I did. And, it's like, so simple, so easy. It's like, there's like, game-changing information out there that sometimes we just don't even know exists, so, and I think having mentors is really important. And there's a few other people I met throughout the process that just have been really influential. And so I think you have to surround yourself with people that have been through the process, and not, there's a lot of people nowadays, I feel like, that, love to fake it till they make it and tell you how to be successful when they've never been, through that process themselves. And so I think you got to be careful about who you surround yourself and what information you surround yourself with. But I think if you find people that have been through it, that understand it, that have been successful with it, most of the time you'd be surprised at how willing they are to share that and to, to talk about it. And it's amazing some of the things you learn from people like that. So.
Oh, it's amazing. Just like you're doing with me and everyone else, listening today. And so thank you. So you'll read some, and then what I heard you say is having mentors and surrounding yourself with people, hopefully, that have been there, done that kind of thing, to be able to hopefully help you understand that what you're going through, while it might be unique, it's not insurmountable, and it can be done, and you will do it. and you will make it through, and you will go golfing sometime in the future, Well, that's awesome. Very, very good. Jared, any other closing thoughts or remarks or anything else you want to share with everybody?
No, I just, really grateful to be able to spend some time with you, Austin. And like I said, I just have tons and tons of respect for Moxie. You guys are one of the companies out there, I feel like, that's just doing it right. And I feel like, there's so much more than delivering a service and running a business, culture, training, growth, those are the things I think that really separate, great companies from okay companies. And I feel like Moxie has been a great example of that. And I just am really, really happy to be able to work with you guys and to be able to learn from you. So thank you very much.
Hey, no, of course. Thank you for those kind words. We're doing the best we can. And, sometimes we get some things right some of the time, but I feel like we're getting more of them right more often as we mature and, gain more experience. So Jared Green, everybody, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Tune into more episodes as they drop, and we'll see you when you subscribe. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in and listening.
Thank you for listening to the Multiply You podcast. You'll see us again soon when you subscribe for future episodes.